one, with President Viktor Yanukovych fleeing to his political heartland in the east of the country after the Ukrainian parliament voted to dismiss him from power. Well, that was all in this edition of the news. Thanks for the pleasure of your company. We'll see you again at 2200 hours for more news. Until then, I am Fatou Janembai.
Africa belebe no mala. Assalamu alaikum badingol ngal mume be kontong ngal tentu ngal jayi e bina National Bantaba Forum mfintitale bi nata kana brikama wa West Coast region follow drong mbenna nyol mume be konton na wol kono jali per minte Honorable Alhaji Sidi Njai ani Honorable Babu Gay Sonko APRC National Youth Mobilizer aninna a sefo mimbijang mi yalon ka telbe sirin governor to yala mbe jatiol fana mume be kontonna min yalon nako wolle nata kana mabe na bi National Bantaba Forum programme to birkama sate kono jang nal hakilo ba kan nun komanto banko nyaton ko ay kitabo dole fintindi nun a dada wayati na Bantaba yaje ko sulo bijele nga finti nimbadi ngol nyokono to dia bawo dunia ñokono to diya dronnom ñing kamalam besen na fasoto noje minul nata si sefo to yalla ani parti dingol musol minul be ma be ta jang seyta donkal mume be konton koten kal jayi kitabo e min fo inshallah na diamulal binala jele ini badingol be kacasoto la jele sa en bawo wato fela tata manta kumo mendi la fang mbe honorable Alhaji Sidi Njai la kumandi la nang ayna anim badingol sekacha
maa ngi nuyu Chief Adja Diané ki nga xam ne moom moo fi toogal governor West Coast Region di Alhaji Lamin Sane di nuyu honorable Ibrahima Njanko Solo Jammeh député Foni Bintang ki nga xam ne moom moo fi toogal député yi di nuyu suñ jaate gi mooy chief si am nañ fi up to about 4-5 chiefs di nuyu ñi nga xam ne ñoom laa àndal di nuyu képp koo xam ne yaa ngi fi rek tànk boo fi toogee mbaxana boo fi maa ngi leen a gërëm di leen sant si tuuri National Bantaba team bi comme ni ko Tidiane Diané waxee we are here to sensitize you on the two important books authored by His Excellency the President of the Republic, Sheikh Professor Alhaji Dr. Yahya AJJ Jammeh. The two books, as indicated, one of the book reads, this is how the tragic consequences of the British looting and misrule in the Gambia inspired the founding of the United Nations and its drive for decolonization January 1943 and beyond. This is among them, and this one is A Million Reasons to Leave the Commonwealth of Nations. These are two important books His Excellency authored, and the messages contained in this book, among other things, are statements by His Excellency the President and the United Nations General Assembly during the 68th and 67th sessions of the General Assembly of the United Nations, his call for African leaders, for African Union and the United Nations to be equal in its world order, in its drive towards maintenance of peace and order throughout the world, which is the primary objective of the United Nations. And his arguments in these two books, among other things, is His Excellency believes the United Nations' primary responsibility is to ensure that the unjust wars, unnecessary killing and mayhem of young men and women around the globe is unacceptable. We all know the politics, the hypocrisy that is played by the international community in respect of those wars around the world. We have what we call the United Nations Security Council. You have permanent members and non-permanent members. You have 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, which includes the United States of America, the Great Britain, France, China, and Russia. African continent bigger than the European continent. Only Sudan bigger than the half of the European continent. We don't have a single permanent member of the Security Councils. His Excellency said, and when resolution is passed by the United Nations Security Council, is these 5 powers, among them anybody who vote against it can veto it, will say no to the 54 or no, to the more than 162 members of the United Nations, will say no to them. Why not Africa? We have seen what happened in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Palestine, Sudan, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Nigeria, you name it, the list goes on and on and on. But more recently, Iraq, the so-called Democrats and the so-called preachers of human rights, democracy, and good governance and rule of law went to Iraq by passing the United Nations. The so-called powers and the so-called custodian of human rights and democracy are today the masterminders of the killings at the, in Syria. The so-called Democrats, the so-called fathers of the world, are the one killing in Iraq, in Pakistan, and in Afghanistan. And most of the things that they do is they will go and engineer war. At the end of the day, they will go on the ground and start to loot the oil resources those people have. These are the issues that His Excellency talked on these 2 books. Important to note that it is evident in January 1943, when the then United States President of America, Franklin D. Roosevelt, he came to Gambia, he came to Banjul, Batos at the time, on his way to Morocco. And prior to his arrival, they have sent an advance team to look at the possibility and the security of the American president and his entourage. But what they saw in Banjul, Batos at the time, in 1943, that's 71 years ago, was so eyesore, so shocking, and they saw the condition of the people as very deplorable. And they saw the people of Batos who lack completely development, who have not a single development at the time. You cannot see it. It was invisible. And they described Batos in 1943. The President Roosevelt and his team, they described Batos in 1943, that's 71 years ago from today, as a place that is not fit for human being to live. You look at 1943, an American president, and by the time Winston Churchill, he was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain, and he was the one responsible for the government of the British empires, the British colonies at the time. And the President Franklin Roosevelt said to Churchill, his deplorable and poorest colony and Batos of his. And he described the situation as pathetic, unaccepted, and uncalled for. And President Roosevelt called on Winston Churchill for them to abandon Batos and also to apply policies of decolonization throughout their colonies, and particularly Batos, Banjul, which he said they have neglected it. There is no development. There was no water, no electricity, no road infrastructure, no other infrastructure, no health facilities, and not even a better structure